Why? Hello and welcome everybody. Also, good morning. So today I wanted to go ahead and jump into my two favorite things about the giant update for Path of Exile 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and spoil them right now. And there's so many good changes, but the two that just really jumped out to me would be the support gem change, which I'm going to let them kind of speak on and I'll just comment over it. And the next one would be the new trade system that, my goodness, I've been waiting 12 years for in Path of Exile 1. So let's jump right on into it.
The most interesting elements to creating a build. They're what enables so many interesting mechanics and different ways to play, but POE2's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type on your character. We didn't want builds to just become using the same 5 most powerful supports in every skill. The problem with this design though is that it's actually working against using multiple skills in your build. If you can only use each support gem on one skill, it means that you're encouraged to go all in on that one ability. And we want to encourage you to combo your abilities, something needed to change. So with that in mind, we've removed the restriction of having one of each support gem per character. You can now use as many copies as you like.
So just to stop there and kind of comment on that, I see this going like, I don't necessarily see it going both ways, but I understand the initial logic. The logic is like, you find a support gem that gives you more damage, like elemental, whatever, gives you 20% more damage, all elemental skills. So you put it on all of your elemental skills. And that kind of, I don't know if homogenize is the right term, but it kind of pulls away from the theory crafting. And I can understand not wanting to do that. But unfortunately, the reality is sometimes for things to just feel smooth, you need to sacrifice damage for quality of life. An example would be Martial Tempo. It's a support gem, I think, that gives you like 20 or 25% attack speed. Maybe it's not always the best like skill to use in terms for damage, but it is something great to use for quality of life, right? Maybe your attack will hit faster so the mob doesn't stun you out of it. Maybe your movement skill goes faster so you can disengage and re-engage quicker. Maybe you have a buff skill that can benefit off the attack speed. Now you have to make a decision of like, okay, do I want quality of life or do I want quality of life? Why can't I have all the quality of life? So it's not even just for raw damage. Sometimes just for consistency and honestly quality of life, you want to use more of the same support gem. So again, I understand the initial philosophy, but it didn't always unfortunately plan out that way.
This should drastically increase the amount of possible builds and increase the amount of skill diversity. There are a lot of potential builds that suffered from the previous restriction. For example, a poison build previously couldn't add poison to more than one skill.
That's an
They
example.
couldn't use stacking poison on more than one skill either. This severely limited your ability to combo with anything outside of the specifically designed poison archetype, but now you can. Many utility skills previously couldn't scale to endgame, because the supports that would make them scale were more useful to use on other skills.
Yep.
You would never speed up killing Palm with Martial Tempo, when you would much rather use it on your primary skill instead. There are more examples like this all over the place. In addition to that though, we thought there wasn't enough feeling of progression in the.
And this is where I get to the next part, is as he actually named it, progression. Progression is such a tricky and important thing for me in RPGs. When you're playing something long-term, when you're playing a character long-term, to me, progression is one of the most important things. You need to feel your character getting stronger in multiple avenues. I know so many people who play Path of Exile 1, and not to like directly compare it to PoE 1, I'm just using it as an example, and they'll stop playing a character when the upgrades become too expensive because they don't want to chase for those expensive items. And I know that's a bit of an extreme comparison, but having any form of progression like this just, I think, makes characters feel better, So an example here, you have like Brutality 1, Brutality 2, Brutality 3. Now, I was actually a little bit surprised because it's not as straightforward as Brutality 1 is weaker than 2, which is weaker than 3, and I'll let him kind of go into that.
Supports as you went through the game. There were only 3 tiers of supports, and many of the most important ones were given out at Tier 1. Also, there were no strict upgrades, meaning that upgrading supports when you ran out of sockets required quite a lot of thinking. In order to solve these issues, we now also have multiple levels of many supports as you go through the game. For example, double barrel support gives you an extra bolt, but at the cost of 30% less reload speed. At Tier 2, the penalty gets lowered to 20%. But then at Tier 3, the support gem gets something new. It now reloads automatically when you heavy stun an enemy.
That is really cool to me because that essentially means that the higher tier support, so like 1 to 2 is an objective upgrade, but 3 can modify things. And that's something I wasn't expecting, but I really should from Path of Exile, right? because otherwise you kind of just it just becomes simple, right? There's not really much decision making anymore. I always love when decision making enters the game, basically.
In some cases, the highest tiers might work a little differently, and you'll have to decide if you like the upgrade or not, depending on your build. For example, rapid casting. The first couple of levels gives 15, then 20% increased cast speed. But then at tier 3, it changes to a new approach. For each different spell you cast in the last 8 seconds, you get 10% increased cast speed, which could be a pretty big bonus if you use a lot of different spells. So that's pretty good for upgrades through the campaign, but we wanted to add a little more spice to the endgame for supports too. And that's where our new system, Lineage Supports, comes in. You can think of these like unique items, but for supports. There are supports that are only available at endgame, but they're much more powerful. Like Ratha's Assault. It's an upgraded version of Double Barrel that reloads your skill as you dodge roll, as well as increasing the number of bolts it can hold. But it does mean that it's the only way you can reload the skill now. Now, unlike regular supports, you can't find these through the uncut support gem. Just like unique items, many of these can be found from specific bosses.
And I like that a lot because it basically gives a reason to target farm specific bosses. So I play SSF a lot, solo self-found, and one of the issues I had is I needed to farm jewels. So where is it you go for jewels? You go through Trial of Sekima. Fortunately, it's a very big grind to go through everything and can be really annoying. Having like a 2 reasons to kind of do the same exact content is really good. More importantly, it's like a chase support gem, which I think is just really cool. It adds more customization, it adds more power creep, it adds more variety. It's just cool, right? We have so much more progression kind of coming in just from the support gem avenue, which I really was not expecting. So very, very happy with their decision to kind of just go in a different direction. And then the next one is pretty cool. It's actually cool because we've talked about stuff like this for literally 10 years on my stream, and I'm happy to see they went with an idea that I think a lot of people kind of proposed.
Fully asynchronous trade.
You can actually thank Mark for that, the guy on screen there. He got fed up with people being AFK, and that's where this came from.
Over the years, the way players trade with each other in Path of Exile 1 has morphed from using the forums, through to the in-game chat, all the way through to using the website. These systems, in all their iterations, work for a while, but with each iteration, new problems eventually reveal themselves. Be it requiring you to be in your hideout too much instead of out there killing monsters, or never getting responses from people who are either AFK or just can't be bothered. In order to finally solve this, and this has been a long time coming, we're adding a new system that allows you to buy items from other players without requiring the seller to be present.
Are those gloves actually worth 10 divine? I didn't notice that.
So you to buy items from other players.
What does he have listed? Are those actually good? Triple damage with attack speed? Maybe. I don't really know POE2 values.
Without requiring the seller to be present. They can continue farming, killing monsters, AFK as they please.
You can see as an item sells, right? You can just go ahead and pick it up whenever you want. There is one potential issue with this where I can see where maybe if people misprice it, they specifically said that if you put the item in and you list it, you cannot take it out for X amount of time. So most likely if you accidentally put it for 1 exalt instead of 1 divine, it gets sniped. There's really nothing anyone can do about that. What I would recommend for like the beginner players is essentially if you get an item and you don't know its value and you think it's worth a lot, do the old form of selling that's still available where you put it in your premium tab and you list it. If nobody gets you, like messages you after X amount of time, you know it's probably safe to just list it in there for that price. Then you can take it out of the stash tab, put it in that merchant tab, and then you're good to go. They also said for people who purchase their premium tabs before this, you have the option, I think, of converting it to these new merchant tabs or whatever exactly they're called. And that's pretty much, those are pretty much my 2 favorite updates. The merchant tab or whatever you'd like to call it, this system can take anything that does not go on the currency exchange. So basically nothing that I believe that's like stackable and stuff. So it pretty much covers like the rare items and the unique items, you know, those really weird items specifically. And then all the currency can be traded through Faustus. And then the limitation here is gold. You do need gold to pick up the items and purchase them off of someone. That's where like the limitation kind of lies. Anyway, that's pretty much about it for me. I'm super stoked for this patch. Very excited. You know, I have to say, when I played POE2 last, you know, whenever I'm ending on it, it's kind of ending not necessarily on a bad note, but I'm like, you know, the game has been fun and all, but I'm kind of bored now. I go log into POE1 and I'm like, holy crap, POE1 is epic. I just finished playing POE1 now for I don't know how long. It's been about 2 months. And then I just thought about POE2. I logged into the game. I tried to click the move. My character started attacking. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is WASD. And, you know, I really have to appreciate the differences between the two games, right? I know a lot of people want them to be similar. And I even kind of want them to be similar to an extent, right? But I love how different they are because when I get finished with one, I want to go play another. I don't just feel like one is a better version of the other, right? Like POE2 is obviously in early access and needs time to cook, and I gotta say they're cooking. So that's pretty much about it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And let me know down below in the comments what your favorite features were of this update specifically, because there's a lot of them. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you guys all tomorrow.